Today's episode is brought to you with the support of the Brain Collective in Harrogate. They're a brilliant team who specialise in helping people understand how their brains are functioning and how to optimise mental well-being. They work with everything from focus and sleep to stress and resilience, using gentle, non-invasive techniques like neurofeedback and brain mapping. What I love about it is that it's not about labels or diagnosis, it's about understanding your brain and what it needs to thrive. I've had the pleasure of speaking with people who've worked with them, and the feedback is always the same. They say they're supportive, empowering and eye-opening. So a big thank you to the Brain Collective for sponsoring this episode, and you can find out more about their work at thebraincollective.co.uk. Welcome to part 3 in our 3-part series. So this is the third and final part in talking with Emma Jones Phillips. She's the founder of the School of Naturopathic Nutrition. And for well over 20 years now, since 1996, they've been improving and transforming people's health. So I'm just really enjoying this conversation. We're talking about all kinds of different approaches, really, from ancient Celtic wisdom to the Chinese 5-element system. It's a really individual approach, a multidimensional approach actually to health. And it empowers people to understand their own journey and hereditary history, and to learn what is needed to heal and develop a deeper understanding of themselves. So I just can't wait to get into today's conversation. Let's get into it. You know, with living with chronic fatigue, life, I'm imagining, was quite debilitating. First of all, tell us a bit about that, and then, you know, if we can go on to what changed for you as well then through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, my life kind of ground to a halt with chronic fatigue because I spent most of my time bedridden, and I had a large amount of allergies, so it was quite difficult to be in public spaces, couldn't be around perfumes, etc. And I felt that it was quite difficult to understand what I could eat. There wasn't a lot of information in those days around intolerances, and I was classically intolerant to gluten, dairy, and a number of other things. So I had to go right back to actually learning how to cook whole food. And I became a vegetarian quite early on in my journey because I knew that dairy and meat had a negative impact on me. So I was feeling it in my body. So as a vegetarian and growing up in a family where actually that wasn't the norm, I had to learn really how to, make simple recipes. And so that became a very interesting journey. So when I discovered that naturopathic work was the answer, I did what you described today, Angelina, around local food. I had a local supplier that was organic, and where I was living at the time, there was quite a lot of allotments. So people used to actually give me a lot of free food as well, which was amazing. And eventually, I used to contact Riverford in those days, was still running on a very small scale. And Riverford, an organic supplier, so they used to deliver eventually then. But in the early days, I was actually asking people who were growing their own to bring me organic food, and that was nice. So it meant going organic for me because I had chemical overload in the body. In terms of my liver needed detoxification, and when we are congested on a liver level, there's a lot more allergies that happen then. So pesticides on food was a big issue. So organic was a big part of getting well, and predominantly moving towards plant-based eating and working with good quality water. So I got myself a filter and filtered my water and ate natural plant food. And in that particular prescription that came from my naturopath, it was a macrobiotic style diet. So short grain brown rice, using more pulses in the diet, seaweeds, which supported my thyroid. And so it was quite a change to what I'd traditionally grown up in Wales, which was meat and vegetables, and it's quite similar in a way to what you described around your ancestors, because my grandmother also had an Irish line, in my family. So yeah, very simple eating. So with the naturopath that I worked with, she suggested some supplements that I'd been really short of for a long time, and omega-3 was a big part of that. Omega-3 was so essential because I'd grown up in the 70s with the fat-free revolution, Rosemary Conley, and, go fat-free and move over to the margarine. So it was all about, staying slim and not actually thinking about hormonal health. So I had a lot of hormonal issues as a result. So bringing in the essential fatty acids was huge for me because I don't think I'd actually experienced any healthy fats along the way. So, your omega-3 flaxseed oil, I used flaxseed oil on my meals. I used soaked flax, which is linseed. That really helped. And magnesium is huge around chronic fatigue. So when there's muscular pain, there's any disruption with the way the hormone system is functioning and the nervous system, magnesium was a big part of the healing journey. So omega-3 and magnesium, I would say, was so important. And the naturopathic technique. So I did compresses to my liver with castor oil. And so I took myself through what I've described as the 7 stages of treatment. So out of that came my philosophy of the 7 stages of treatment. And then I did some further training in Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, raw food, and brought my own philosophy together then. So my philosophy is quite unique and you won't find it anywhere else in any other naturopathic school, because I've brought together my own healing modalities that worked for me within a course, really. And that's the base of my first training. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And how did your life change when you started to get well and start feeling better? How did it change in terms of how you felt about yourself, how you felt about everything, really? And, did it, I know for me, I've grown more confident with not only nutrition, but with exercise as well, and reducing stress and all those things, all the pillars of living medicine. It's changed so many aspects of my life, and not least how I feel about myself and the confidence that brings. And I'm just wondering what impact it had on you in that way.
It had a huge impact. It sounds very dramatic, but it was a bit like a rebirth, really. It changed every aspect of my life from how my career moving forward. One of the things with the diagnosis when I was in my 20s was that they said that I wouldn't have any children, and I ended up having 3 children in my 40s. So it changed my life path, having children. And I think my attitude is so different having come across this work, because I feel like I'm feeling better every day. And I have this sort of saying that as I grow older, I'm getting younger. So it's sort of a feeling of there's always more to discover, and it feels almost like, there's always more to learn about myself. So it's incredible, joyful process, and a feeling of, wow, I wish everyone could experience this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's just a game changer. It's a complete game changer in every single aspect of not only how you feel, but it starts to then change your life, because you are more confident. You make better choices for yourself, and you were talking earlier about being aligned with your purpose. Your what's important to you as well. And I think that all that starts to happen when we really start to tune into what it is, who we are, really, I guess. I imagine that there's been some real challenges along the way, running a holistic health organization, and based on non-mainstream systems as well. Tell us a little bit about that, any challenges that you came across.
Yes, so the challenges, I guess, the first 10 years of working, if you sort of go back 10 years, I think that in those days I used to get people who'd been everywhere else and they didn't know what else to do as a naturopath. I used to get people who were at a last resort. And those challenges often were the people who had quite a number of steps to do to get well. And so it meant more sort of long-term health programs for people. And so on average, it would take maybe 2 years for people to get well because they exhausted the medical profession and they not really found any other answers. So it's a system that's very integrated, but it can take time to help someone in that way if they've had a lot happen to them physically or medically. I think these days it's interesting landscape because people come not only because they're unwell, but because they want to stay well. So there's an opportunity here that everyone can have an experience of naturopathy to use it in all sorts of ways, and that's really changed. And so there's the whole naturopathic concept has really boomed, especially in the last 5 years, since what happened just in 2020. So I think that's an interesting flip that we are now in a phase where this information is so accessible for people. And so one of the downsides of that actually is there's people are coming with a whole array of knowledge, but they may not have made it individual. So they think they're coming with the concept that they've read and they know a lot already. But sometimes there's also pulling out the things that are going to work for the person, but also looking at the real facts, because you can read so much now online, etc. And there's so many people, for example, sharing around influencers, sharing around health. They may not always be saying the right thing for the individual, but that can be a challenge with the information overload that we have in society now with social media. So it has to be always individual, even though we've got these principles which can work across the board for everyone, the 7 stages. It has to be individual based on the medical history and the person's where they're starting from. So taking a full history is very important. And I think that's really it's really essential to understand then if anything's going to be contradictory within the prescription, such as medication and herbs. Will this person be able to take on these supplements because of their own health journey? Supplements don't just slot into place in the body. They have to find a way of absorbing within a system that's ready for it, right? So the upshot is there's so much availability of people wanting to hear this message. Downside is information overload from people doing their own personal research and maybe influencers sharing, but maybe sharing without a personal history for the person.
Yeah, it can be a bit generic, which is good for some, but like you say, often we need that individual assessment, I guess, really. Just a quick pause in the episode to let you know about something special. If you're enjoying these conversations, you'll love what's waiting for you over on the brand new Member Vaults page. You'll find free downloads, bonus podcast episodes, and a chance to explore my VIP club. A supportive space packed with exclusive resources. We'll have monthly Zoom sessions or online video sessions, and a private podcast feed just for members. So head over to angelineht.co.uk to dive in. So that's angelineht.co.uk. Everything's in one place, and it's all made with you in mind. Okay, now back to the episode. What was it like for you in the beginning, when you were starting all this? Something completely new, really. Mm-hmm. Was it scary? Was it exciting? Was it a bit of both? I'm just wondering what that was really like, because it takes a bit of courage to start a college and teach this stuff.
Yes, it was both, as you shared, really feeling daunted, but feeling like it was something that I had to do because it was a passion. And I think that as I saw changes within people that I taught and worked with, it sort of motivated me to continue. And so it became, it's not really described as work for me. It's part of me, how I share. I usually say work is play. The feeling of sharing and being able to support people and see them really flourish is such a privilege. And so that's wonderful. I think in the early days, the challenge would be, what is a naturopath? When people used to ask me, what is a naturopath? I'd usually say I was a nutritionist, because it's easier to explain because people didn't know the concept of naturopathy 20 years ago. But I think now we're in a place where people are kind of going, yeah, I get it. You know, we need to come back to these natural methods in order to heal on a planetary level, really, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's so true really, and it was the passion that drove you forward. And I think that's true from anyone that I've heard of, and I know that I can relate to that as well. When you're starting something that is new and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, for a start, that the imposter syndrome, if you're anything like me, starts creeping in. And that's really common with a lot of people, by the way, imposter syndrome. But when you push through that uncomfortable feeling where it doesn't all make sense, but you just feel that that's what you're meant to do. When you do that, it does lead to a happier and less stressful life. I think you have to learn to live with the uncertainty. Or when you're running your own business, there's no security, nobody's coming. It's so it can be a bit scary, and you have to learn to live with that uncertainty, really. So it's not easy. So I just wanted to sort of get a sense of, I imagined that it was a bit nerve wracking in the beginning,
And one top tip would be I've had some amazing mentors in my life, and always have a mentor present in my life in order to. I mentor in the early days. My naturopath, she used to say, if you haven't got the courage to borrow it, you can borrow it from somewhere else. And could never be someone in the early days who could stand up and talk in front of people. I was so shy. And to think now that I went on, to train hundreds of thousands of people over the years, it's incredible. You don't really know what you're capable of until you make that leap of faith. But there's always having someone who'll stand with you and give you that courage as well in the early days. And I feel like I've had some amazing teachers who've done that for me, and our friends also, and our clients, when we're working with people, they become our best advocates. They tell other people about the work, and has a sort of real sort of snowball effect.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that sounds like quite a journey, actually. And again, I can really relate to that. I couldn't really speak in a meeting. I would get all nervous and all that sort of thing. But again, I think when we're aligned with what we really feel that we're supposed to do, and we push ourselves out of that comfort zone, and yeah, when we're lucky enough then to come across, I think again, when we're aligned like that, there's something. We come across people, don't we? I hear this all the time. You come across people, mentors, people that encourage us, and we just get little nudges along the way, I think, that definitely help. No, that sounds amazing. And not to be dismissed, really. That's a huge part of this, really. So, what's next for the School of Naturopathic Nutrition? Are there any new courses, retreats, or trainings coming up?
Absolutely, yes. So the next one is actually summer solstice retreat in Wales, where we incorporate and embody the concepts that I've shared today. We're looking at foraging, wild food, organic eating. We do yoga and cacao ceremonies and sound healing. So that's what's actually immediately next. And something I've been working on this year and I've really enjoyed doing is the hormone course, which is a 6-week course that's been running and is recorded. So people are able to actually hear it, even though they might not have attended. So that's something that I feel really passionate about. In the age group that I'm in now, I am in perimenopause. But I feel that it's an empowerment journey for many women that they don't really maybe first discover that it's actually going to, as they come out the other end of menopause and post-menopause, it's actually a self-empowerment journey and what I describe as a passage to power. So the hormone course is something I feel incredibly passionate about, helping men and women, but I do work a lot with women in my groups, but I'm open to share that information with everyone, really. And the naturopathic course that starts in September, that's the 1 to 3 year training. And so people come to do the course, not only for themselves, but to actually set up as a practitioner. So it's a fully accredited course. And that one happens every year, and it runs over the course of 1 to 3 years. So people can receive a qualification at the end of year 1 as a nutritionist and year 2 naturopath. By the time people get to year 3, they're really looking at advanced naturopathic qualifications. So people usually come for 3 years, but it can be doing the first year just for yourself. It can be just a personal journey. Not everyone wants to run a health business. So that's there. And another new thing this year is the health coaching world. So naturopathic health coaching is such a popular thing now, but actually putting it into a package where you're able to share it in a concise way is really important. So that's designed for existing practitioners or existing people in the health care business who want to actually expand into naturopathy and share it alongside their qualifications. That's just finished up for this group, but there'll be another one in autumn.
That sounds awesome. It makes so much sense, and I'm just thinking about, life coaching and that kind of thing, when really naturopathy, it's the foundation, isn't it? If we're trying to make changes in our life, we want to feel better, we want more clarity in thought, we want to be more productive, more motivated, better in relationships, to showing up for ourselves, really,
Yeah.
in a more, in a whole way. The 6 pillars, as I call them, or the systems that you talk about.
Yeah.
It's the foundation. If we're trying to do well in our lives, I think without this foundation, it's really hard. And I in my experience, I don't know if it's sustainable. But I'm obviously can't speak for everyone, but I think it makes it life so much harder if we don't have some of these simple practices in place, really. And it's about playing the long game, isn't it? We can't do this stuff overnight. As we mentioned earlier, it is about doing one thing per day, or even if you just want to start even slower and say, I'm going to make one change this week, it does accumulate for sure.
It really does. That's a really powerful message, because we're in a society now where we're expecting everything quick and right now, and that's can be quite detrimental for people because they make decisions about their health that aren't necessarily good longer term. And in the same way, we can flip that and say, if I have my 2 liters of good quality water today, my skin is going to be good this week compared to if I didn't. There's an accumulative effect. And then we find ourselves, with symptoms that we wouldn't expect just by just not having enough water. So it's very accumulative. And you mentioned exercise. Exercise is such an important part of this in terms of changing our state. It really does help mental and emotional health in such a big way. So diet alone is not enough. We do have to look at the other pillars, as you shared, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And each one helps the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be full on exercise. It can be movement of some description, getting out walking. Start where you're at. Start where you can, kind of thing. Really important to just do something, a little bit of something. Okay, so people can study with you, they can engage with you. That sounds absolutely brilliant, and learn more about their body and their energy system. Really, if we start to think about ourselves as an energy system, that's what I'm trying to do. We'll put your website details and all the details in the show notes. But just for the purposes of the audio, if you can tell everybody, where they can get in touch, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is through my website, the School of Naturopathic Nutrition.com. And you'll find then there's a contact number and an email address. You can contact me. Also on social media, if anyone wants to find me on Instagram and Facebook page, SNN Facebook page, Naturopathic Nutrition. And so best way really is to, look us up and see what you're attracted to. I also do one-to-ones, so I still practice on a one-to-one consultation level. And there'll be something for you that we have to offer, because really it's really looking at where you are on the journey and making a starting point. If it's an initial one-to-one, great. And it could be you want to change your whole career and retrain as a naturopath, and that's exciting too.
Absolutely, yeah. That happens so much in our 40s and 50s where, it takes us a while, but we get fed up of just working a job that doesn't really do it for us. There's no meaning to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing. That it's great that you're teaching others to take on this path, not only as a personal journey, but also to help others as well, and potentially become a coach themselves. So that sounds amazing. If someone's listening that feels disconnected, burnt out, they're unsure where to begin, what's your message to them?
To start with small steps, really. Reach out. Doesn't have to be to me, but to someone who actually feels like a mentor and who will impart some wisdom to be able to make those small steps. And the first step is to start at the beginning. The hydration, as I shared, starting to think about cleaning up the diet. And that has a knock-on effect in terms of making you feel more energized, to feel like you want to take on more, and to really give a large dose of self-love as well, and to really come back to be kind to yourself, and you attract people who will be supportive on your journey.
Love that. That's so important, isn't it? We were talking about that at the beginning, how we
Mhm.
speak to ourselves. Okay, and what would you say your journey has taught about yourself? What do you know about yourself now that you didn't before?
That I'm capable of so much more than I thought I was. That's actually how important that self-love is. I think I'd spent a large part of my life not doing that, and I wish I could have told myself, my younger self, that actually it is going to be okay and that you are good enough. So the importance of self-love is quite a big part of my work, and the big part of seeing people unravel their potential. I'm always really very amazed myself how people start in one place and they become this amazing, flourishing, exact real example of themselves. So one of the statements I use is like going from black and white to full color in your life. Yeah.
That's an awesome way to say it.
Yeah, that's what I felt, and that's what I see when I'm observing students or people around me when they start to take on the healing journey for themselves. They just look so bright, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's the power of the human spirit is it's incredible, really. We so underestimate that in both in ourselves and others, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes we can see it more in we see
Yeah.
capabilities in others more than we do ourselves, don't we? But yeah, it's incredible how people go from the depths of depression sometimes and anxiety to really connecting with themselves and going to colour. I love that, from black and white to colour. I like the
Yeah.
way you put that. So that's lovely and powerful, actually, really powerful. So finally, what legacy do you hope your work will leave? Not just in health, but in the way we relate to nature, spirit, and each other.
Yeah, so the legacy I really hope to leave is that everyone feels that inner self-empowerment, that they have the wisdom to overcome anything that they come up against in life. It's an inner knowing, really, that people discover when they embrace naturopathy, and that gives a feeling to me and my family, that they know that if anything happens to them medically or on any level, that they'll find a solution. That's the legacy, really, of self-empowerment. And I believe that everyone has that ability to know, that inner knowing of what's next. Yeah.
Yeah, what if we can take control of our health? That's one of something that some people worry about, their health, especially if they've had some health scares. So, what if we could take control of our health? And it turns out we can,
Yeah,
with the work
absolutely.
that you're doing.
There's so much availability of natural medicine now that we can. And there is, in a way, we've just got everything at our fingertips. We're at that point in our evolution. And so that's exciting. And it's important to understand how we got there to be able to understand how we'll get well. So I always emphasize knowing the medical history and, piecing it all together for yourself. And how did I actually get here? Where did I go? Where did things go wrong? Is part of the self-empowerment. Because often we're looking outside of ourselves. There's someone's going to fix it, but it's an inner journey, really, of, okay, that's where the body has actually been speaking to me, telling me why if I made that decision, this is the impact, for example. So you can see that in a history, when if you sit down and look at the timeline of when someone become unwell, you'll see that there's particular patterns there.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's amazing. This is accessible for everyone. It's powerful stuff. And I'm just so grateful for you to join us today and share this wisdom with us all. I love your journey. It's really powerful, and I'm so glad that you took the leap to start your own college and to start this work. Your passion and the ancient knowledge that flows through your work it's fascinating to me. It's not something that I've heard. I've heard of natural eating and nutrition, but to mix in those ancient wisdoms as well is absolutely brilliant, and it makes complete sense. So it's incredibly inspiring to see how tradition and science can come together and truly transform our lives, actually. Absolutely. To our listeners, if you want to explore courses, learn more about the elements, or start your own healing journey, check out the show notes. And for all the links, this just might be the beginning of something profound. So for now, thank you, Emma. And I'm sure that our paths will cross again in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us at Happiness, Health, Relationships podcast, where small daily habits are your future self. If today's episode resonated, share it with someone you love. Follow the show, leave a quick review. It helps more people find this message of more fulfilled, healthy living. It'll also help keep the podcast going. If you want a little extra between episodes for simple weekly tips and habit challenges and behind-the-scenes updates, come hang out on Instagram at Hennessy-Thompson or TikTok at AngelineHT. You'll find the links below. I'd love to connect with you there. Remember, your future isn't shaped by big leaps, it's built in the quiet, consistent choices you make every day. And we want to be with you through those choices. So keep showing up for yourself, one day, one choice, one habit at a time. And I'll see you on the next episode.